Alive on the moon, Jaro, it's on the pen alive, with your host David Knapp.
Thank you, Clap Track, and happy Thursday night. I'm your host, Dave Knapp, ManOnMounjaro. That's why I am here. You are on the pen. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Compound, that pen. That is why you are here. And we're all here to share a little bit of community and a little bit of information about the medications that are changing lives. GLP-1 medications is what we know them as. And it is such a pleasure to be here with you each and every Thursday night. Thank you for being here, Ray, Deb, J-May, Anna, I see you. Mimi is in the house at lunchtime over in Australia. Liz, Natalie, Mindy, Deb, thank you all for being here. It is such a pleasure to spend some time with you. And of course, the wonderful and absolutely spectacular J-Neb, Deborah, Melissa, welcome. Hey, if you're new here, I'm Dave Knapp, ManOnMounjaro. As I said, we cover all things obesity, medicine here at On the Pen. And Candy, you are a recently added member to the channel, so thank you for being here. Carrie and Tammy, thank you as well. But we have had the distinct pleasure of bringing you all of the news in GLP-1 medications for 2 years this week. 2 years this week, can you believe it? 2 years ago this week, I was making videos about starting a medication. I was 1 year into my type 2 diabetes diagnosis. And I had found this medication and I was dying to learn more about it. I was dying to know more about how it worked. And here we are 2 years later. What a road this has been to travel for the last couple of years. And thankful to do it all with you because you all are so wonderful. Drop it in the comments of this video what your favorite things that you've experienced over the last couple of years at On the Pen have been. I'm very curious to hear from you what you all have enjoyed. Candy, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Definitely appreciate that. I want to hear from you what the highlights have been. I mean, obviously you all have been a great highlight for me. The friendships that we've made and formed over the last couple of years have been unexpected and so amazing. But if I'm to highlight some of them, obviously Obesity Week, being able to attend their live after 1 year ago. And you're going to hear more about that with tonight's guest, Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, on for the second time in the last 10 weeks. So super, super exciting. Angie, welcome. I think Sabrina, I see you in here. Thank you for being here, Sabrina. Cherry Pie, welcome. But appreciate you all sharing kind of your thoughts there. But, you know, attending Obesity Week was great. Getting to meet Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, getting to meet Dr. Mike Albert, getting to meet the Row team, Z Ritano, and his crew, who have been such wonderful sponsors of On the Pen, really elevating, you know, my content to another level by virtue of having a sponsorship. That's a huge deal. And then Dr. Beverly Chang, last week, I'm not sure that a ton of people saw that video, and I probably didn't do the greatest job promoting it because I was just, honestly, I was so tired and trying to pull together a show. I should have just taken the week off, but it's so hard. I know that many of you love this get together and rely on it every week, and I just didn't want to deprive you of a show. So we put one together sort of last minute. But it was an interview that I recorded with Dr. Beverly Chang. If you didn't catch that, you're missing out. She's great. She's been on a couple of times, and so yeah, we had a great show that we had last week as well. But Obesity Week was definitely a highlight for me, and so I'm just still kind of coming down from that. you know, getting to meet Dr. Spencer Nadolsky in person was a real highlight. Some of the friendships that I formed just really stand out to me because these are the unexpected parts of the journey. So thank you for those who have shared in the comments. And if you're watching this after it's live, please let me know in the comments what your favorite memories are of the last couple of years. 2 years. I can't believe it. I honestly cannot believe that much time has gone by since we have been doing this here at OnThePen. So I just wanted to reminisce a little bit with you before we started the show tonight, because there's a ton to get into. I mean, it feels like there always is, right? I mean, there's so much news to cover. You couldn't possibly cover it all in a week anymore. It's just growing that fast. But we're going to do our best here at OnThePen to stay on top of it, not only from the perspective of what is in the news, but what does it mean? Because the one thing that we're committed to here at OnThePen is having information available to you to have more competent and confident conversations with your medical providing team. Of course, most of the information that flows about these medications is intended for doctors. It's intended for investors. We take that, we sort of digest it all and bring it back to you and just regurgitate it on all of you. For the beautiful visual that is. You know, what's pertinent? What does it mean to you who are on these medications? And of course, no topic has been bigger over the last few weeks than accessibility. We've had a 3-part series. We were 2 parts in on this show, this live show. This is the 90th episode. But the last couple of episodes were prior to last week's, which was a recap of Obesity Week, have been teeing up this kind of 3rd part. And so I want to touch base on that real quick before we jump into the rest of the show. We've been following the tirzepatide, semaglutide compound battle, the legal battle going on with Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly. Of course, you have the outsourcing facilities association suing the FDA currently, and November 21st is sort of like D-Day when they have to report back to the court. Whether we're going to get information that is meaningful that day still remains to be seen. I say there's about a 75% chance that we'll get meaningful information out of that, but they just have to report back. They don't have to give an answer that day, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. Of course, we've been covering, you know, the regime change here with the Trump administration set to come in here in a couple of months. We had heard the announcement today that RFK Jr. is indeed going to be put in charge of the National Institute of Health. I'm sure you'll all have comments on that. I'm not giving comments on that because I can only anger half of my audience. But I will say that I think it's going to be interesting for sure. I think we can all agree on that. But he's coming in as the head of the NIH, which oversees the FDA. And I really believe what we have seen, which has felt like sort of a maybe unexpected from both Eli Lilly and especially Novo Nordisk, who had told us they were not going to do this. Then all of a sudden they did. I think they were kind of seeing the writing on the wall. And I feel like they really wanted to have this battle on this side of the turnover of power because RFK Jr., to say the very least, is going to be a real wild card in that position. So we'll have to see what happens. But the Outsourcing Facilities Association fighting the FDA in this lawsuit is going to be really fascinating to watch. The 21st is the date to watch now. And depending on what happens, it could mean a lot for the future of compounds. We get into that a little bit with Dr. Spencer tonight. And it is really, really important to stay on top of that. And that's what we're going to continue to do here at OnThePen. So if you're not following along, make sure you hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. We're getting very close to 15,000 followers here on YouTube. And you can help us get there by hitting the thumbs up button and then hitting subscribe because we're getting so close to that. And so this is the push, definitely the push to 15,000. And I'm really excited to do that with you all tonight. So yeah, to remind everybody in the chat to definitely hit subscribe tonight. So moving on. We've got a rhythm and a rhyme and a routine to this show, and I'm so excited to talk about some of the exciting things in the news here. Thank you for letting me reminisce for a little bit, but we're going to get in tonight to one of our favorite segments on the show. It's called What is Fresh? There's actually a lot that's fresh. So one of the things that's really exciting is today is the National Diabetes Awareness Day. So for those of you living with type 2 diabetes like myself, it is super important to let people know that treating obesity is a super, super, super important thing when it comes to avoiding type 2 diabetes altogether. And on that note, some of the information that was shared at Obesity Week last week on tirzepatide, the SURMOUNT-5 trials. Now, tirzepatide, this is crazy. These are crazy numbers. Now, we had heard that there was a 94% reduction in developing type 2 diabetes, but 99% of the people on this 3-year trial of tirzepatide. Now, tirzepatide is the active ingredient in Mounjaro and Zepbound, right? This was a 3-year trial, and they started this trial with people who were pre-diabetic. So they were very close to developing diabetes. And in this 3-year trial, 99% of people treated with Mounjaro did not develop type 2 diabetes. Now, can I get a whoop whoop in the chat for the amazing news that is? Because that is 99% of people who, if they get access to this medication, can avoid getting type 2 diabetes altogether. And that is an absolutely amazing feat in medical advancement. And one of the reasons that we get so excited about this, like, I wish I would have had this a couple of years ago before I developed type 2 diabetes, right? But for my children who are going to be genetically predisposed to both obesity and type 2 diabetes, it is amazing to know that there is a treatment that can help them avoid getting, at a 99% clip, can avoid getting type 2 diabetes. And that is a father of 4 babies and 1 fur baby now, right? Y'all met her before the show. If you did, let me know in the comments. But to avoid getting type 2 diabetes is just an amazing, amazing thing. So on this Diabetes Awareness Day, we wanted to bring light to that SURMOUNT trial, which is just amazing news. And I am so thankful to all the researchers, to the scientists at Eli Lilly that worked so hard on developing tirzepatide, and all of the money and resources that they put into bringing this to market. Listen, if you follow this from a financial standpoint, obesity medicine has never been a sexy area to enter because it's always been considered cosmetic. That's the way insurance companies have always seen it. And pharmaceutical companies have always considered the insurance companies as their customers because they're ultimately the ones that pay. They got to work the deals with them. But now you see the pharmaceutical companies are rising up to know that actually, you know, our customers are the patients, and we can go direct to them. That's one of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of Lilly Direct's direct-to-consumer play with the vials 2.5 and 5. We are crossing our fingers, and I am very, very, very hopeful that there are more vials to come. More to come on that later, but I'm very, very hopeful after the last week that we're going to see that. Spoonie gifted 5 memberships. If you want to become a member of the channel, yeah, that's a great idea. We do members only live streams before the show. We do some early releases of videos. We do some members only videos. So like, if you want to become a member, really at the bottom line is it just financially gives back a little bit to the channel so that I can justify the time that I put into all of this. And y'all know, you all know, especially those of you who have custom emojis next to your name, you know how much time I put into this. Drop it in the chat if you know how much time your boy puts into this. But thank you all for reminding me to remind people that they can become a member of the channel. Of course, the link is in the description of this video. But what else is fresh? This is very interesting. And we heard some news today that Novo Nordisk is actually going to drop their human insulin pens altogether. They're only going to be, human insulin is only going to be available in vials. Now, if you're like me, you kind of heard that. I've never taken insulin personally. And so I just thought, like, if it's insulin for people, they're not going to have pens anymore. That's actually not what it means. What it actually means is there is insulin that is an exact replica of human insulin. And then there are analog versions. Like semaglutide is an analog, the root word being like analogy, right? Semaglutide is an analog to GLP-1, meaning it's not GLP-1, but molecularly, chemically, it looks just like it and it acts just like it. So there's actual insulin, and then there's the analogs. And the analogs are what allow people to have a little bit more flexibility in their diabetes treatment. They can actually take basal insulin or prandial insulin. Basal insulin is like the kind of insulin that's going to last you all day or even longer. They've got new insulin out there that's going to last like a week, I think, is crazy. And then prandial insulin is just a fancy way of saying your mealtime insulin that you take. It's short acting and it acts very fast. But those are analogs. And so it's just actually the human form that that they're eliminating the pens. Why might that be? Well, this is why that might be, right? And with the study that came out on tirzepatide, it sort of makes sense, right? Because it's like a lot less people are going to be needing insulin in the years to come. And that is a really, really good thing. And that is because these medications are doing what? Well, they're helping people avoid getting type 2 diabetes at a 99% clip, right? At least that was what we heard from tirzepatide if you've been watching since the outset of this. Hey, if you're just tuning in here, I'm Dave Knapp, ManOnMounjaro. Thanks for being here. I know there's a lot of new people watching tonight. Hit the thumbs up button. That really, really helps other people who haven't seen our content to be able to see it. So thank you to those who have already done that, but please help other people see this as well. That really helps the work that we do get out there. And that's really what we care about. More people getting more help. With that said, we're going to move right on to our Taking Out the Trash Thursday. It used to be Fake News Friday way back in the day. Which had a way better ring to it. Take out the trash. But Thursday is literally the night that I roll that can out to the trash curb. And so when we do this on the show, it reminds me, hey, Dave, when you're done with the show, go push the trash out. But this is the segment of the show where we always talk about the garbage news that's out there. And tonight is no different. So let's take out the trash. So we shared a little bit of information the last couple of days that was really interesting on Amgen's MariTide. Now, I've been bearish on MariTide. Now, don't let me lose you. If you're not into the future obesity treatments, don't let me lose you. But MariTide is a once monthly GLP-1 injection. That's like the main thing to know. But I've always been skeptical of it because you know, these medications are a GLP-1 injection. This is a GLP-1 and GIP injection, and it's mostly GIP. GIP is just another hormone like GLP-1 in the same class of hormones, but taking this typically means better results in the weight loss department and less side effects than it means if you're taking one of these. That's just reality. MariTide is very similar to this in that it acts on GLP-1 and GIP, but MariTide actually does the opposite in a way. Instead of binding to GIP receptors, it blocks them. And it's a once monthly instead of a once weekly like this. And so I've always been a little bit bearish on this drug because you take it once a month and it's like, what if you have side effects? And early on, they're very small sample sizes, but people dropped out because they got stuck with these horrible side effects for a month and then they dropped out of the trial, right? So I've been a little skeptical of this one. Then some news dropped this week that there was huge bone loss within I think it was a 3-month study, a phase 1 study, that people had like 4% bone density loss in taking this, which was very alarming considering Mimi, who is in the retatrutide trials, has shared with us just a few weeks ago that she actually improved her bone density. Am I right, Mimi? Am I saying that right? I know you're in the chat tonight. But I believe your bone density improved on retatrutide. So to hear that it's sort of backtracking. Now, my sort of theory behind this is that there are GIP receptors amongst other areas in the cells of your bones. And that if you're blocking them, that stands to reason that it could cause some maybe deterioration or something. But again, I'm not a chemist. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a guy on YouTube. But it just sort of made sense in my head, at least. And so I've been a little bit bearish about this one just because on the surface, it's got a lot to prove to me. But the interesting thing here to me was that 4% weight loss. Well, guess where that 4% reduction in bone density, but guess where this information came from? And this is fascinating. It's actually a spreadsheet that was put out by Amgen for investors, and they forgot to remove a bit of information. Maybe they left it in intentionally. At the end of the day, you might see why. But basically, this was like a set of like 4 patients is all. And then it was one person who had a huge reduction, which brought the average down a lot. And they're not sure why, but they left that in there because it you know, they ethically, I think they wanted to leave it in there. But very interesting that it was like a spreadsheet. And it's like, oh, what's this tab? Oh. And overnight, 12% of the market cap of Amgen was wiped out. And Amgen has some pretty profitable medications out there on the market. And so just a very interesting piece of news. So the news, the bottom line is the news about Maritide, which we gave this week based upon this information that was released a couple days ago, is maybe not as drastic as we think it is, and we'll have to see in the future how this bears out in larger clinical trials. But I still think that that Maritide has a lot to prove. A lot of people are excited about it because they're like, once a month and just take it and you're done. And like, people are excited about it. I like my once weekly shot. In fact, I think I could get down with the daily shot. I like the feeling of something going into me, but I'm also just a sick man. So, well, yeah. I know I'm not alone there. I know some of you like the feeling like that shot. You know something's going into you and you know it's going to do its thing, right? I don't know, something about it. So we'll have to see about how this all kind of pans out in the end. I'm excited to let you all know that Spoonie, masochistic much, maybe a little bit. I'm excited to let you all know, and we've talked about this a little bit on our channel. I have introduced a peptide called DNF10 into my regimen over the last couple of weeks. It's really helped me to move the needle on the weight loss. This integrated peptides can't wait is the product. It's linked in this description below. But DNF10 is a small chain peptide, so it is orally bioavailable, whereas most peptides aren't because it's a short chain. It is. And it's thought to act on leptin and ghrelin. Listen, I've been losing 1 pound a week since I started taking this 6 weeks ago, and I was not doing well before that. So if you want to, you can check out integrative peptides and use the code OTP10. If you use the code OTP10, OTP for OnThePen and 10 for 10%, you're going to save 10% on your order from integrative peptides. And a little bit of it comes back to the channel to help support the work that we do here. Just another great partner that we have as well. I want to also tell you about Ro, because Ro is our telehealth partner. If you are looking at gaining access to, like, listen, we talk about it all the time on this channel, how accessibility is the #1 issue here, and everything is up in the air with compounds. Ro is a extremely competent brand when it comes to helping you fight for your prior authorization, formulary exclusions, things like that. They have a team, an army of people that are ready to fight that battle for you. So if you are interested in GLP-1 medications, if you're already on them and you're like, I'd like to try again at branded medication, maybe your insurance is changing, it's kind of getting to that time of year again, take a look at Ro. Ro Body's program helps patients lose 15 to 20% of their body weight in a year when coupled with diet and exercise. You can get there by going to ro.co/OTP, and you can learn all about this. Of course, if you're going to take a new medication, like you're not already on a GLP-1, or you're thinking about switching to a GLP-1 because of these accessibility issues, it's extremely important that you familiarize yourself with the potential risks of taking any new medication. All of that's going to be a couple clicks away. Just go to ro.co/OTP and shout out Ro in the chat here, because Ro has been a tremendous sponsor of OnThePen and really allowed us to continue to do this thing in the capacity that we are and do great things like go to Obesity Week and bring you the information from there. A lot of it was about Viking Therapeutics, which is a whole nother topic that I could talk for about 20 minutes on. But if you're not following me on X is where that conversation about VK2735 is happening. So follow me over on X if you're not over there. It's very fascinating because it's all investors over there, and they all got a lot to say about VK2735. But tonight's hot channel is this. For the second time in the last 10 weeks, we have the wonderful pleasure of bringing you an interview with Dr. Spencer Nadolsky. You may remember him from such telehealth companies as Sequence, which was purchased by a telehealth company called Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers. That's it. Have y'all ever heard of Weight Watchers? Anyway, Sequence got bought by Weight Watchers, and Dr. Spencer has been one of the principal doctors involved in Weight Watchers for the last couple of years. He's ventured on out to do his own thing, and he's talking to OnThePen because he knows that this is one of the most wonderful communities of people living with obesity on the internet. And it was so gracious to give us a little bit more of his time to talk a little bit about Obesity Week, and he goaded me into talking about my own personal journey, which, you know, I don't enjoy because it always turns into a bit of a therapy session for me. So you're going to get a little bit of Obesity Week, and you're going to get a little bit of Dave's therapy session, and probably somewhere Dr. Spencer's crying in the corner somewhere, like, I'm never doing that again. I'm just kidding. No, it was a great conversation. It always is. I got the chance to meet him in person while we were down there in San Antonio. Just as amazing to talk to there as he was over on the pen here. This was a picture of us as we got to meet there at Obesity Week. And so we caught up this afternoon. We're bringing you the interview here. Of course, if you missed last week we had an interview with Dr. Beverly Chang, who is amazing. If you missed, like a lot of you missed that episode, please go back and check it out. It's very good. But tonight, without further ado, I bring you tonight's hot channel with Dr. Spencer Nadolsky.
Hot channel.
Maybe. I'm still here, I promise. Oh, no. Ran out of storage space. Amazing. Well, let's see if there's a different way to do this. That's amazing. There's maybe a way to do this. Maybe a way to do this. Hang tight. When you do your own show and you have no producer and it's just your gig, this is how it is sometimes. So you can blame this one on the producer. That's me. I'm also the guy that cleans the toilets and does everything here, everything else here at OnThePen. But I think there is a way to do this. So let's check this out. While I'm doing this, talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. Coffee cake. It's neither coffee nor cake. Talk amongst yourselves. Let's see here. How do we get to a library? Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to do this. And that, and that. Oh, we're getting so close. I think we're going to do it here. So you're going to have to let me know in the chat whether the audio works or not, but I think we can do it. We got a great conversation tonight with a guest that we've had on just about 10 episodes ago. Dr. Spencer Nadolsky is joining us again to discuss, among other things, the events around last week's Obesity Week, and just kind of the history behind the Obesity Society. I'm excited to have the conversation with him. If you don't know Dr. Spencer, perhaps you've heard of the Docs Who Live podcast, where Dr. Spencer and his brother, Dr. Carl Nadolsky, have a podcast, talks about all sorts of things related to obesity medicine and metabolic health. Dr. Spencer is a board-certified obesity and lipid specialist physician, and most recently known for his work with Sequins, which was acquired by Weight Watchers, and now is sort of venturing off to start his own thing again. And so we're excited to bring in Dr. Spencer Nadolsky again to OnThePen. Welcome, Dr. Spencer. How you doing, man?
Always a pleasure, my man.
Thanks for doing this again. I first of all, it was super cool to meet you at Obesity Week, to sit down and chat. It's always fun to be able to like just meet somebody in person that you've gotten to know a little bit virtually. So that was awesome. So thanks for spending some time with me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the drink.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. I mean, I was, one of the things I was looking forward to the most was getting the chance to meet you, to get to meet Dr. Beverly Chang as well, and just like some people that I've admired over the last couple of years. Like my interest in Obesity Week obviously makes sense considering the content that I make, but really started last year. I was pretty uneducated about the Obesity Society and just the movement within the medical community in general. As far as like how far medicine has come from treating obesity. Like I didn't have really a great probably understanding and respect and reverence for how far it's come in my own lifetime. And so learning a little bit about Obesity Week last year from kind of following your tweets, following tweets from Dr. Mike Albert, Dr. Beverly Chang, like I was like, oh man, I got to be there. And so to be there this year and to actually meet you in person when I was literally following your text last year, you had no idea who I was. And just kind of like FOMOing a little bit from afar. It was such a cool experience to be down there and to be a part of it. Curious, like tell me a little bit about how you got involved with the Obesity Society. Like when did you start going to those shows? What do you go there for? And kind of like, what do you look forward to when you do go there?
Yeah. So interestingly, I used to go as a med student to something called the ASBP conference, American Society of Bariatric Physicians, which that was 2000 first. I first went like 2009 when I was just a med student, and then they rebranded to the Obesity Medical Association, which you may actually appreciate going to that conference as well. And then I actually and that was in 2000 whatever 12 or 13. Obesity Week started in 2013, where the surgeons and the obesity physicians got together and created one huge conglomerate of a conference. And I started going to that one because the OMA, or Obesity Medical Association, which was the ASBP before, they're much more clinical, not as much research oriented. And at some point, your clinical knowledge gets pretty saturated. So I wanted to get more into the research type of stuff. So I started going to this Obesity Week. And so that was my involvement. Then I got, after residency, you go to medical school, 4 years of medical school. Then you do residency, which can be anywhere from 3 years up to like 8 years or something if you're doing neurosurgery or something crazy.
I've watched Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, Grey's Anatomy. Everybody, what's funny about Grey's Anatomy is that like the orthopedic surgeons and they all just blend in the different type of surgeries, and it's like that's not how it works. And then they're in the ER being ER doctors. Yeah. The OBGYNs are being like neonatologists. It's like little baby doctors. It's really funny to watch. So yeah, if you watch Grey's Anatomy, you'll understand. I
get medicine.
You'll understand it all. So actually, recently in the past few years, the surgeons stopped going. And there's a whole thing in the background that I don't know exactly, but I don't know if it's a money thing or whatever, but they split off because the conference used to be much bigger just a few years ago, huge, because the surgeons brought in all the money. Because you could tell, and you could always tell who was a surgeon and who was just a regular non-surgeon, I should say.
How could you tell? Did they have an entourage and arrive in armored vehicles?
They were dressed to the nines. You could tell they were like wearing whatever Armani suit type of, like they were done up. They all looked the same. It was I don't know why exactly. Maybe it's a personality thing. I show up in my short sleeve button down watermelon shirt. I actually used to dress up, like when I spoke at the Obesity Week a couple of years ago. I got in a suit, but that was just because I was speaking. There you go. There it is, right there. The picture of. So I did it once, but like usually now I'm like I really like to be comfortable. But you could tell back when it used to be the surgeons used to go. They were always in their suits, just done up, hair done up, ties, very they look good, but you could tell they're the ones bringing in all the money. Where you go in to see all the different companies that are trying to get your business.
Sure.
They had these huge setups because they have a lot of medical equipment that they're trying to sell the surgeons. Meanwhile, now we have obviously Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly there. You could see their big setup. So they're bringing in money, but like the surgery people, they used to bring in so much more.
I can imagine.
And
yeah.
It was huge.
This last year I was selling x-ray equipment, and I went to, there's like one big trade show for imaging happens in Chicago every year. And I went there this year and it was massive. It was by far the biggest trade show I've ever been to. And it had, like GE and Toshiba and like all those and they had their booths were like the size of a city block. it's crazy. Like they had erected like buildings within their booth that had like 2 levels, and it was wild. The amount of money.
I've never seen anything like that.
It's crazy the amount of money that floated around at that thing. So it's sort of what I had in mind when I went down there. And then I got there and I was like, wow, this is actually really small. I'd actually been in that exhibit hall before, where they utilized the whole thing, and it was only part of it. So I was kind of underwhelmed by the size of it. And
much bigger. Used to be much bigger.
Yeah, I kind of get that vibe. And even from last year, where there was a lot of new clinical data that dropped at Obesity Week last year, that was really exciting to kind of follow. At least it was new to me. Maybe the difference is that it was the same, but like I'm more tuned in to be aware of like what's new and what's not. But it's just like a lot of the stuff that I sat in on was like, oh, we've kind of already covered all this. And so it was a little underwhelming for me from that perspective, but super educational to hear the physicians talking about their, what's going on in the real world and their own practice. One of the things that jumped out to me, and I'm curious to know if there was anything that jumped out to you this year, but the common undertone between a lot of the different sessions that I went to was this kind of prevailing thought that people don't stay on GLP-1 medications. That I can't remember what the medical term that they threw around there was, but like
discontinuation.
Yeah. Basically, people just don't stay on the medications, and that seemed to be like a big undertone. Like I think that's why the medical community seems excited about orals, because they think that there will be a higher adherence rate to oral versions of these medications, or even like the once monthly injections. They're just kind of bullish on people staying on the medications if there's new presentations. But to me, and I'm interested to hear what you think, they're like, this is what the data says. It says that people are only on this for this long. But to me, I think more than anything, it's not because people aren't willing to take the shot.
Yeah.
I think that it's more about they lose coverage, they can't afford it, or I don't think some of these numbers are including the 2 million people that just moved to compounds that are out of sort of the tracking system.
Yeah, I agree with you. You see this, it's a lot of, I would say, non-physicians saying this type of thing, and nothing against, these researchers that don't practice medicine, but it's a lot of people they have no experience in it. And you being in the world, you have more, you have obviously taking it, but also being connected with so many other people taking it. I think you see the big picture. I agree with you. I think it's faulty data. People, I post about this all the time. People are like, you're going to take my Zepbound from my cold dead hands.
Right.
They don't want to stop it. If they're forced to stop it because it costs $1,000 a month, or if they go to the compound and it's like, it's not being tracked. It's
right.
Not being tracked. And so then you see this like, look, see, people don't even take these medicines. And it's like, yeah, they want to take those medicines because they finally have relief from all the food noise and all the other ailments that they had before, not even including just the food noise. But the only thing is like the orals hopefully just makes it more accessible in terms of being able to make the product, and then just having price competition for different companies jumping in the arena. But I notice other doctors, unless I do see other doctors say that people discontinue it, but they're the ones that aren't prescribing the medicine. They're kind of the GLP-1 naysayers. You'll see it on Twitter all the time. It's basically like, they'll try to, they try to punch. They're really punching up because they can't really punch down at these things, but they try to make these little quips about them being bad because people don't even continue them. And it's like, no, people want to continue them. So.
Yeah. Well, when Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are like, hey, we're selling every dose that we can make, and then they're like, Lilly's putting up $30 billion in infrastructure over the last couple of years, looking forward into the next few, 30 billion. And Novo Nordisk is trying to acquire Catalent, one of the largest manufacturers of generics in the world, at $16 billion. Like the two companies that have something already are exhausting every effort to gobble up capacity to make more of it because they can't make enough. It's just like that was maybe the part of the conference that I thought like was most detached from reality. I'm like, this is because it was said with such confidence. Like, how do we improve the adherence to these medications. Like, that's not the problem.
Yeah,
you create adherence by more formularies adopting the medication, more competition making it cheaper, so it becomes more accessible. And yeah, orals, I think, offer something to the conversation as far as, people don't want to take a shot. But honestly, for most people, I think they actually enjoy the shot. Weirdly, like, I think it's good to, people, feel something going into you, like that it's going to do its thing. I don't know. It's probably all mental, but
well, also, like, trying to remember taking a daily pill can be annoying. I mean, currently, like, Rybelsus is the only approved oral GLP-1 right now, and it is annoying. You have to take it with a tiny, tiny little bit of sips of water. You can't eat or drink anything else for 30 minutes. And then on top of it, it's not even effective because they don't have a high enough dose of it. Although they did present the
25
the Oasis trials showing it's 25 milligrams. So Rybelsus oral semaglutide goes up to 14 milligrams right now, and they showed 25 milligrams, and this one had about a 12 or 13% total body weight loss, and that's compared to 50 milligram oral that study came out a year or so ago, showing about 15% weight loss. So not far off, despite half of the dose.
Yeah, basically what Novo was saying out of that one is they're not looking at the 50 milligram because that wasn't a huge increase in efficacy over the 25 versus the 50. I think it's more of an API thing, but your point is well taken. And I think that sort of leads into what I felt like was the biggest news out of the week. So obviously oral formulations are kind of the wave of the future, just because of all the logistical concerns and challenges that that go along with cold chain storage of these medications. I think that the reason we haven't seen Novo submit this to the FDA yet is simply, I don't think they have the capacity to manufacture that much API. I just really don't. When you look at 2.4 milligrams weekly of Wegovy versus, basically 10 times that amount per day in the pill, I just don't see them as being able to keep up with that. And also, the concern about the oral sort of cannibalizing some of their sales on the injectable. So that said, some of the big news, and this was another interesting thing to me throughout the week, was this whole idea of poster presentations. That was a new one for me for trade shows. So basically, for anybody who doesn't know what this is, basically they have a trade show hall, which is like any other trade show you've been to. By the way, apparently that's old school language, trade show. But that's what I've always known them as. So you go there, there's an exhibit hall, there's vendors, there's Eli Lilly, Novo, obviously they're right in the middle. AstraZeneca had a big presence there because they dropped some information on an oral that they're coming up with, a small molecule. But in this poster presentation, they kind of like opened the doors, and it's like kind of had the vibes of like Black Friday shopping, where basically most people there who were, part of the investor community or media, they open the door, everybody kind of rushes in and goes to what they're interested. This was Viking Therapeutics, the VK2735. So the big news there was on their oral. So they have an injectable and an oral of their GLP-1 GIP candidate. Same molecule. One is oral, one is injectable. And their oral showed 8% weight loss. The placebo adjusted was a little bit lower, maybe 6 and change or something like that, in 28 days. But the high dose of that was 100 milligrams. And I believe that VK2735 is a peptide. So where the oral of semaglutide, you mentioned, like, it's kind of like a gremlin pill. Like you can take it with a little bit of water. You can't eat, otherwise you turn into a monster, or it just doesn't work. The VK2735 is a peptide, and I think that they just jacked up the API because I'm not sure what technology they have to make it orally bioavailable. Can you speak, obviously, we don't know what they're doing exactly, but can you just speak to maybe a little bit why oral peptides just don't do that well from a bioavailability standpoint?
Yeah, peptides get destroyed by our acids in our stomach. So proteins, amino acids, they fold up, basically. So like, think about like egg whites. I don't know, those egg whites, when you heat them up, like the actual egg white, then it forms this white stuff. Actually, what's interesting is that denaturing that actually improves its bioavailability. When you drink egg white straight up from the carton, it's not as bioavailable as if you cook it.
You say that as if that is a normal behavior. Is that something you're doing consistently, just drinking eggs?
I used to.
That's disgusting.
It was kind of gross. I don't know why I was doing it. It was just kind of a convenient way to. So just a side quest note. I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, so I have to take a Synthroid in the morning. I can't take it with any calcium, which means no whey protein, no milk, whatever. But egg protein is fine. So I actually get an egg white protein powder now, but I used to get cartons of egg white because it's already pasteurized, even though it's not. So there's not bacteria in it.
You're just slamming that in the morning, just right.
It was great.
It's not that weird. I do the same thing with ranch dressing. I don't know if that has anything to do with my weight issues.
That probably tastes a little bit better. And some chicken nuggies. I used to get it from Burger King, the chicken nuggies with their ranch. But so you can imagine these very delicate peptides or chains of amino acids, and they get into your stomach, and the acid denatures it, breaks them apart, folds them, whatever, and then you just don't absorb them into your system. The way that the oral semaglutide gets around it, they put this. It's called a snack system. I can't remember what it stands for, but it changes the pH very locally in your stomach, like right where the pill is, so that it can be absorbed. It's pretty interesting technology, but like the ideal situation with these new small molecule agonists is that they're smaller. They don't have these long peptides that can get folded and denatured and broken apart. And that you just absorb them, and you can eat food with them. You can drink as much water because it's just like any other molecule pill that you would take. So I'm really looking forward to like orforglipron. Really is like what I'm looking forward to. I'd have to look at the Viking one a little bit closer because there has to be a reason why they're able to do it if it's still a peptide. I haven't looked closely at that one because
if you look at their injectable, so it's a GLP-GIP like tirzepatide. I don't know what the ratio is on it, but their injectable titration schedule is very similar. I think maybe they skip the incremental doses. Maybe it's like 5, 10. There's still 5 of them, but it's very similar. The upper dose is 15 milligrams. So my guess is it's very similar. The point of this conversation, I think, really underscores some of the nonsense you see with things like some of the, I think it's like Henry Meds or I don't know who, but they're offering tirzepatide, and I'm like, even like you don't have to be a medical expert to look at this and go, okay, if Rybelsus, which is the oral version of semaglutide, takes 25-50 milligrams to get to the efficacy of a 2.4 shot, then is Henry Med selling 150 milligrams daily of tirzepatide? There's no way, let alone the oral bioavailability piece. Like how are they making it so that your stomach acid just doesn't destroy the peptide?
Yeah, they don't have any data.
It's crazy.
They're trying to say they're trying to say it's sublingual, and they think they have some data like it. And what the best part about those ads that you see is that in the comment section, people are like, oh, I'm interested, and there's other people going, I bought this, it didn't do anything. Of course it did. It like, I don't know how they get away with that from an FTC, all these different agencies out there when other people get sued for much less.
Right.
I think, I mean, you see, what is it, Mango RX? You saw that. I'm sure you reported on that news. I think you did report on that news.
Yeah.
I think the hammer is going to drop on some of those people. Like, you just can't. Like, it's one thing if you have a 503B pharmacy making essentially a copy of the stuff versus like making a whole new delivery system that hasn't been studied. They do, these places, these pharmaceutical companies have to do rigorous studies to show the pharmacokinetics and dynamics of how much gets into your system, how long, how high the area under the curve of how much drug is in your system, how the half-life and all this stuff. Whereas these people are just like, I don't know, we put it in a sublingual lozenge.
It's tirzepatide, so it's been studied, but we did these 18 things to it so we can get around the patents or whatever. It is wild. Yeah. And you really think of like, obviously safety and efficacy. I think people should have the ability to determine with their doctor, what's going to best treat their disease. But at the same time, it sort of undermines the entire process of making sure that we have safe and effective medications. It's like the whole reason we have tirzepatide, the whole reason we have semaglutide is that system and infrastructure that exists to make sure that things are being done the right way. Yeah, it's just wild to kind of think about what's allowed to go on, and you know, that's not to mention the fact that, you know, looking at what's going on with the compound medications and what's going to be coming up November 21st with the potential, the FDA is going to report back to the courts.
Yeah,
OFA.
We're a week away from finding out what's about to.
Yeah, but you know, if you kind of play that out and you say, let's say they decide to leave it off the shortage list, then everybody's moving to these custom formulations from 503A pharmacies, and it's like not really the spirit of how 503As were intended to be. And if you go that route, it really sort of undermines innovation. It also undermines just the general, like, yes, tirzepatide, if it's essentially a copy, but how do we know what the efficacy is when you combine it with a B vitamin? How do we know that the molecule acts the same? How do we know that it's as potent? How do we know any of that? Yet they're going to be selling it for $400 a month. When you consider the access to the whatever platform, for between, let's say, $350 and $500 a month. I mean, I've even seen people that are paying like $800 or $900 a month for access to compounded semaglutide, just because people don't know what they don't know. But you know, you think about that potential of that to really undermine, if people can just make a drug that's patented, how that could really undermine the whole process of making sure that we have safe and effective medications.
Yeah, and so, you know, for those who are listening, so imagine some new drug comes out, this company put a ton of effort in, and you know, again, we're not advocating for big pharma greed, but if they put in billions of dollars of research and whatever to create this and come to market, then imagine if this whole thing comes unraveled, that some compounding pharmacy could take that same drug and just add B12 and go, oh no, we made it different, so we're good.
Yeah,
we're good to sell it. Like, that's kind of, I think
from the patient perspective, on the surface, I think the response to that is great.
Yeah,
great.
Right.
You know, then we can get access to medications, but I don't think that's the answer. I mean, the answer is reform to our whole medical system, right? But not at the expense of innovation and safety. And I think that's sort of the concern. That all said, I'm still a huge proponent of 503B compounded medications to provide a pressure relief valve to the pharmaceutical companies' inability to keep up with demand. I think that the second that starts to impede on the sales of these medications, which both Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly have reported that they're selling everything that they make, so their sales are not being impeded in any way, shape, or form by compounded medications. I think if they were to be, that would completely change the conversation. But I also think that that's indicative of the fact that they can't make enough of it, and that's why we have the 503Bs to begin with. But we'll all be interested to watch it all shake out and see how it goes. There's one other thing that I wanted to just kind of touch base with you on, just on the topic of Obesity Week. So one of the things that was really eye-opening and sort of illuminating to me throughout the week was this whole history of obesity medicine. And I guess, like, really, I came away with a greater appreciation for how far obesity medicine has come in my lifetime. Because it was really only, my eyes were open as leptin wasn't even discovered until 1994. That is pretty wild. Because that was not all that long ago that we were just learning about how hormones affect essentially eating, energy intake. What in your, because you have a smaller window of time that you've been practicing obesity medicine, how far has it come, you know, from a clinician standpoint? How far has obesity medicine come since you started practicing, in terms of just how obesity is viewed in the medical community? Because it was interesting to me to learn that there's many in the medical community, who are very, very resistant to calling obesity a disease, and viewed it much more so as a precursor to disease.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, you know, in medical school, I said I went to these other conferences, and they were using all they were using was phentermine. And for people out there, phentermine was the other drug in fen-phen. It was the drug that didn't cause issues. Fenfluramine was the drug that caused issues in fen-phen. Phentermine was the it's a noradrenergic sympathetic drug that kind of, amphetamine-like, but not amphetamine. Not addictive.
So it was really combining an upper with another upper.
So fenfluramine was a serotonin receptor agonist. So it was an upper and a serotonin drug, basically. So it wasn't two uppers. The phentermine is kind of an upper. You feel it. I took like a half a tab once for whatever reason. I don't know. I got a sample or something. Like, all right, well, let's see what this feels like. And you could feel it kind of has that upper feeling, but for a lot of people that hits certain receptors the way the adrenergics do to reduce appetite. The thing is, though, people get side effects from uppers, increased heart rate, insomnia, dry mouth, those types of things. It was approved in 1954 or 50s. I can't remember exactly. But only if you look at phentermine, what we call monotherapy by itself, 12 weeks, only 12 weeks. You can't take it longer, according to FDA label.
Yeah.
So I was in med school till 2011. After 2011, so 2012 is when Qsymia was approved. Qsymia is the combination of phentermine and topiramate, and they approved it for chronic use. That was the first drug that I know of. I mean, maybe, I don't know about how fen-phen was labeled. Thing is, I wasn't around when fen-phen was big. That was in the 90s, but it was kind of a big deal because it was approved for long-term use, kind of thinking of obesity as a chronic, whether you call it a disease or condition. At least it was approved for long-term use as opposed to phentermine by itself, for whatever reason, only 12 weeks at a time.
Is phentermine available in higher doses than you get it in Qsymia? Is that why?
Yeah, so phentermine in Qsymia goes up to 15 milligrams. So the dose, the higher dose by itself can go up to 37.5 milligrams. And some of these other doctors were cranking people up to like 70 whatever milligrams a day. Like even I heard people were putting people on 100. Like, man, not something I would mess around.
I had that for a little while, and I think I was on they prescribed 715, and I was taking half a tablet, 7.5. If I took more than that, I feel like I would have fallen over.
Yeah. So the reasoning behind Qsymia, the thought process was like, okay, topiramate also has effects through GABA, through different receptors other than phentermine. And you could use lower doses of each, because the higher doses of topiramate, you start getting tingling and numbness.
Weird stuff.
Lips. Cognition issues is what most people think of. You get spacey and whatever. But lower doses, you can not have those side effects, but those lower doses don't cause as much weight loss. So then phentermine, same kind of thing. So if you put the lower doses, combine them, two different receptors, all of a sudden, hey, we don't have as many side effects, but then we have a higher amount of weight loss. And actually Qsymia, 10 or so % total body weight loss. That was the best one we had, because that was 2012. Something called Contrave came out. People probably know that one, but it's bupropion and naltrexone. Again, for chronic use. And that was that was pretty cool at the time. But then, very, very mild amounts of weight loss. We see maybe like 5 to 6% total body weight loss with Contrave.
And then eventually you get to sort of liraglutide and the advent of GLP-1s. And we kind of hashed that out a little bit on the last conversation that we have. But from a medicine standpoint, it's obviously come a long way. Do you feel like from the clinical standpoint, the providing doctors providing care to patients, do you feel like that has also come a long way, sort of axiomatically with the medicine, or is it still kind of a battle with some of the community?
It's still a battle for some, but it's come along. I mean, I was on social media even as a med student resident, and just having battles with like older doctors online about how it was a behavior. They just called it a behavior problem. And so the paradigm's shifting. These GLP-1 agonists are really shifting the conversation more. And we were trying to shift it. You know, the AMA was in 2013 or so. They finally listed it, obesity as a disease. There was some controversy, or even back then, there was a committee that didn't want it to be labeled as a disease.
Yeah.
In fact, people like David Katz, if anybody follows him, kind of this lifestyle guy. A lot of these kind of lifestyle, I call lifestyle zealots, even though I'm a big lifestyle proponent. We're kind of pushing back at this concept, and I really just think it's a, straight up obesity bias. Like it's, they just don't see it as a disease. But when you start looking at the biology and the pathophysiology, it's like, oh, this makes way more sense as a biological disease than not. So the change in conversations are happening, and I think the big accelerator right now are the GLP-1 agonists.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like maybe bariatric surgery and a lot of the results with those kind of probably help to drive the conversation too, and then sort of evolve through the proliferation of GLP-1s.
It did, but like a lot of people still were like, there's still a lot of bias. Like, oh, you're going to get surgery. You don't have an anatomy issue. You just have a behavior issue. It's like, it was extreme enough and not as easy to just get a surgery. Whereas these shots, it's like, okay, you might as well trial it, whatever. It's a little bit expensive, but like at least it's accessible now, barring some shortage or whatever. But like now, since so many people are on them, whereas before it's just still not that many people got bariatric surgery, and it was still thought to be kind of extreme. Like, oh, you're going to cut open your insides and rearrange your intestines just to lose weight. Why don't you just put the fork down, type of thing? Whereas now it's like it's so overwhelming with patients having benefit because they go to their doctor, they don't give it to them, they go to whoever online and they get it, and they go back to the doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, actually, maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah, right. They have to kind of see it work.
Yeah.
That's interesting. One thing, and then I'll cut you loose here. So we talked about some of the older versions of these medications, and one of the things that rabbit holes that I went down, I kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, but one of the rabbit holes I went down was peptides and patents, and why does something become a pharmaceutical drug and not? And I've in my kind of going down that rabbit hole found a real small chain peptide that is a nutraceutical that is thought to work on leptin and ghrelin. And I've been taking that, and it's been helping me. I've been down like a pound a week since I started. So obviously not the vast, robust clinical trials there, but just the idea of stacking for people who are slower responders to GLP-1 stacking. Have you done any stacking with your own patients if they're not responding super well to a GLP-1, like maybe with some of those older medications like a Qsymia, or like even like orlistat? So orlistat was one of the early anti-obesity medications, came out as a pharmaceutical drug, and then it was available over the counter. That people might know that as Ally. Are you doing any stacking, or would you encourage anybody who's struggling to kind of maybe look in that direction? Or
yeah, it really depends on the person of what they're kind of feeling. So phentermine's an easy one to add on. That's probably the cheapest and most effective one. But again, you want to make sure they don't have any like contraindications or reasons they can't take the medicine.
Right.
The nighttime eating stuff, like the higher doses of the GLP-1s usually take care of that. But sometimes adding topiramate in can be beneficial. Sometimes we're adding in the bupropion and naltrexone type of thing. I think in the future, this is what, like retatrutide, like I think the fat's going to just start melting off people, and it's just going to be like, you don't need to stack it with anything. It's going to be so powerful. But having said that, like if somebody's like, you know what, I'm still at night, I'm craving XYZ, I'm just struggling with my nighttime eating, that's where like topiramate would come in. Or someone was like, I'm having a little bit of seasonal depression type of thing. Well, bupropion might be reasonable. Hey, I'm still craving alcohol despite the GLP-1, naltrexone with the bupropion potentially. So yeah, I absolutely combine different medicines when needed. The tirzepatide is just so powerful now that it's like not liraglutide, Saxenda, like it was only about 7% or so total body weight loss. So like adding in the phentermine made it obvious to do. Yeah. Tirzepatide has been so powerful that it's like not as often needed. And then a lot of times those patients that need more, that's where like bariatric surgery, if indicated, like is the right way to go, as opposed to just doing like a polypharmacy type of situation.
Yeah. I'm really holding out because people have kind of asked me as I've sort of struggled to respond. Now, I think I've shared with you before that I'm diabetic as well. I'm actually like really close to where people get with total weight loss with tirzepatide and diabetes. So I'm like at 11%, but it's been a really, really up and down journey to where I'm at currently. That's why I got really excited about the DNF10 peptide that I found, because it's like I needed something to move the needle. I've actually tried, I've tried almost all those things that you've mentioned. Phentermine, I just didn't like the way that it made me feel. My ticker already runs a little bit hot as it is, so I like the extra blood pressure, and it just stresses me out. I tried the topiramate. I took it for a couple of days, and after a couple of days, I did not like what it was doing to me in my head. Like it was just scary almost. So like I put that one by the wayside. I did do low dose naltrexone independently. So I've like tried a little bit of each of them. But the DNF10 was one that actually like moved the needle for me. And it really doesn't make me feel any sort of way other than, if I take it first thing in the morning, if I get up, I remember to take it on an empty stomach. Really what it does, it gives me the feeling for about half the day of that feeling that you get when you first dose up, or when I would first dose up, like go from 2.5 to, well, I went 2.5 to 5 milligrams of tirzepatide, you know, that kind of dose escalation. So I know that most people are responding to these and they don't need the extra boost, but I think especially for people who are diabetic, and I'm not sure what the science is behind that, whether it's insulin resistance or what, but people do struggle more that are diabetic on these medications to lose the weight, and I don't want to have surgery ideally.
Do you, just to throw it out there, have you looked into like a Jardiance SGLT2 inhibitors?
I've asked my doctor about that. I was really, well, actually you and I had a little bit back and forth. I was interested in the medicines that reduce your DPP4. Is DPP4 inhibitors? Yeah,
I wouldn't do the sitagliptin or anything. It would be like pissing in the ocean compared to tirzepatide. What I would be looking into one of they're called SGLT2 inhibitors.
And that's just what kind of forces your sugar into your kidneys, right?
Peeing more sugar out, but that means you're peeing calories, straight up calories out. There's some interesting studies combining it with phentermine actually improves weight loss results. It's not, you're not going to get a ton out, but it's cardioprotective and will help you lose a little bit extra weight. That's what I would.
Do you think you can get the insurance to jump on board with paying for Mounjaro and Jardiance?
I do it all the time, but depends on your blood sugars and all those different things. But yeah. It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, my sugars are so well controlled on Mounjaro. It's like it honestly doesn't really even matter what I eat.
Really? What was your last A1C? I mean, we're talking about your medical stuff. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you're talking about this.
Yeah, it's all good. It was like 5.6, I think. Yeah,
they may go like, screw off. Your blood sugars are already good.
Right. I just am hoping to keep my Mounjaro. You know, my starting A1C was 7.9, and I did a year of keto because my doctor is he just published a book. He's a big keto zealot. But for me, like I always say, like it's great if keto works for you and you're losing weight and you can live that lifestyle. Great, more power to you. But like when you live with the disease of obesity and you have diabetes, I mean, probably most people with type 2 diabetes also live with obesity, but like my unique journey living with obesity is 20 years of yo-yo dieting on the keto diet. And I mean, it's no different. It's been no different on Mounjaro. I still kind of go back to it because it like can get the needle moving from a weight loss standpoint. I can't ever sustain that.
What do you think is your biggest like struggle? I'd be interested. We haven't talked about your journey.
Yeah, I would say that consistency. I am not a very consistent person when it comes to any of my habits. I'm very I feel like everybody is a buzzword and everybody uses that, but I'm very neurodivergent. I have ADD like a mug. And so I actually lived for a long time on Adderall, and I'm a very high performing person on Adderall because I can actually harness my brain power and complete something and not move on to 15 other things that I get 75% of the way done. But I hate the way that the ADD medicines make me feel. Because they just completely just wipe away my personality. And
I know what you mean.
I hate that. I love getting stuff done, but I hate not being me. And so I think just consistency, like I literally, if you go back and look at my history, my weight history, it's like I'm currently at 279, which is my highest weight was 319 when I was diagnosed with diabetes. So literally like this week, 3 years ago, November of 2021, when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I was 319 pounds. Year of strict keto, got my A1C from 7.9 to 5.4. But my weight went from 319 to 317 or 312. I lost 7 pounds in a year of strict keto, but I had completely controlled my diabetes. Then I went to my doctor and I was like, I told you, like, because I told him when I started, I was like, I'll do it, but like literally I don't lose weight on it anymore. He's like, I don't know, you're not doing it the right way. You're probably doing like lazy keto or whatever. I'm like, I understand. Like, dude, I've read the books, I've read the literature. I was on a keto diet when I was 20 years old, and I'm 39 right now. And the first time I was on it, I went from 230 to like 170 and did really good. And then the second I introduced carbohydrates again, I gained back all of it and then 10 pounds. And then the rest of my life has been every single year dropping 30, gaining 40, dropping 30, gaining 40, dropping 30, gaining 40. Until I ended up at 319 pounds. I mean, so I've literally been white knuckling it my whole adult life. And that's why the keto diet for me, I love my doctor. He's a really, really good man, really, really smart guy, but can't wrap his head around somebody who the keto diet doesn't work for. And so that's like, yeah, that's been my journey. So the hardest thing for me is to just be consistent, because there were some years where I was really successful, but I was doing CrossFit. Like I was doing really intense stuff. But for me, my struggle has always been to find something that I can just do consistently every day. And it's not something that feels like a punishment, or, you know, it's like something that I enjoy. Because like I was doing CrossFit, but it felt like I was punishing myself every day. I was like, kind of like felt like I deserved it, you know, like, I don't know. So I just have a bad relationship with food and with exercise because of that yo-yo.
What about, okay, so when you say you're not consistent, what does that mean exactly? I know you said the keto, that makes sense because you're trying to stick to a keto, but
yeah,
like if you're like, do you have any semblance of a I don't want to even say a plan, but a pattern, a dietary pattern you're trying to?
No, it's my pattern is I go back to keto.
Okay.
I mean, literally when I got Mounjaro, I had a really weird experience with it where it's like 2.5 milligrams I started on. I did really well for a month, but my doctor was like, you follow the titration schedule, so we're going to move you up. In hindsight, and I would say that this bears out in almost every anecdotal, you know, story that I've had of the hundreds of thousands of people that follow my content between the different platforms, is that people tend to do better if they stay on the lowest dose until it stops working, and then they go up. But I went 2.5, I was losing great. I went to 5, I was losing great. Then the next month went to go to 7.5. They didn't have it, so I went to 10. So I didn't even take 7.5. And so within 4 months, I didn't get to 12.5 either. Within 4 months, I was on the 15 milligram dose, and virtually I went from 312 down to 376 or 276 within the first 3 or 4 months I was on the medication. And then it maxed out and I started gaining back on the 15. Then I started getting migraines. So I titrated way back because it's like, I got to get rid of these migraines. And the only thing I could attribute it to was the medicine. And so I titrated back, gained a little bit more. So I over the late 2023, I gained back and got almost back to 300 pounds. And I was on medication the whole time, just lower doses. Early part of this year, I switched to semaglutide. I spent too much time at Obesity Week last week. They got me indoctrinated. Next thing you know, I'll be saying telemedicine.
Telemedicine.
So I went on semaglutide for like 3 months, and I gained a little bit more on that too. Although I felt like I'm really excited for CagriSema because semaglutide actually was way better for me at appetite suppression, just blunt appetite suppression.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like I can't explain it. Like I feel like Mounjaro, when it's really doing its thing, you just don't think about eating. Like it's way more of a head thing for me anyway. With semaglutide, it's like a brick in your gut. Like you feel like I could just feel the medicine down here. Where tirzepatide, I'll take it, and it's just like my brain is quieter. Even from an ADD perspective, my brain is just quieter on tirzepatide. Semaglutide is just, I felt, the way I always explain it to me is like to other people is semaglutide always just felt like a blunt object against hunger, where this is more like stealthy.
That's interesting.
And I don't know if that's the GIP to the GLP or who knows, maybe it's just me, but so I'm excited about CagriSema because I feel like the amylin agonism might be a really helpful thing for a diabetic. I don't know, like just my hypothesis anyway, just as a guy on YouTube, is just if you're diabetic and your insulin's jacked up and amylin is co-secreted with insulin, you probably have some weirdness going on there with your amylin too.
Well, that's why, they had this drug called Similan. Nobody uses it anymore, but that was the original amylin agonist that kind of came out when Byetta or exenatide, the first GLP-1, was out. But we rarely prescribed it, but it was always exciting. The thought, going back to using leptin as a drug to help people lose weight, it didn't really work by itself because people already have a lot of leptin. And there's thought to be maybe leptin resistance, all these different things. And the worry was antibodies towards the leptin. Anyway, they added amylin to it, and it seemed to have some benefits. So I think the CagriSema will be really interesting. There's all sorts of things coming down the line. The other thing is, like, I don't even know if you're a hypo responder, or I wouldn't list you as a hypo responder, but it would be interesting, some of these studies doing higher doses of these drugs, because it would be really cool to know, like, how much is getting into your system. Some people may not just may not be getting as much into their serum as other people for whatever reason.
Well, the interesting thing for me is that it did work. It did work originally. And I guarantee you, if I went off of it, I would gain weight. But from, like, why do people lose weight on tirzepatide ultimately? Obviously, it's going to do things to reduce your insulin resistance and improve that. And that's going to be helpful to create an environment that's maybe a little bit more conducive to weight loss. If you can become more efficient with your insulin production and sugar control, that's all obviously a positive thing for weight loss, right? But I wonder with, I lost my train of thought.
The CagriSema, I don't know.
Fixing your insulin resistance is obviously something that's helpful to weight loss, but ultimately people lose weight by what? Eating less, right?
Yeah.
Taking in less energy. That's what they do. And so at one point the medication did work because it had this appetite suppression quality to it that made me subconsciously. Like I didn't even think about it. I didn't have to think about it. And it really wasn't paying attention to even what I ate. It was just that I was naturally consuming less energy. And so I was losing weight. And I think the insulin resistance stuff helped. But like there seemed to be a waning factor to its, like I would feel it when I would dose up, and that's really where I got those bumps in the weight loss. And it's like once I was on 15 for a couple months, the weight loss stopped and then even went the other direction. I plotted this all out on a graph a couple of weeks ago just so I could, like, I went back and looked at my videos, and because I did update videos and stuff, I was like, what actually happened here? And it was literally that first 3 months as I would dose up, because the first couple of days of the first couple of weeks that I would take a new dose, I would get that feeling. And really after I hit the 15, it's like it stopped. I stopped noticing it really when I took a shot. I would maybe get a day or two where I would feel like less hungry, but that's all the more it would last for the week. And even like I just took my shot yesterday. I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you a difference between yesterday and today.
And you're against surgery. Are you against getting surgery?
I'm not against it. I'm not against it. It's a hard thing for me. I'm only 39. But I'm say only, but I'm almost 40. So it's the argument is getting stronger in the case for surgery. But it's so hard with CagriSema right around the corner, with retatrutide, with whatever that are going to be so much more powerful. But then part of me goes, but are they really? Are they really for me? Are they really?
I don't. Yeah, no. What I would say is that like, why not both? Like, if you're describing like this stronger appetite, the surgery would help from a slightly different angle. I don't know. I wouldn't push you into it, obviously, but I would probably keep discussing it.
Yeah. The other crazy thing is that you talk about appetite, and I told you the story about how I was on keto for a year with 7-pound weight loss, but completely controlled sugars. Like I was doing everything the right way. And I wear a glucose monitor that feeds right into my doctor. Like if I was not eating keto, you can tell very easily on a diabetic CGM, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't eat more than 2,000 calories a day. There's some days where I probably do, like if something's going on, maybe get 2,500 calories a day, or if I have a couple of drinks that day, then the calories go up. But generally speaking, 2,000 to 2,500 calories is about where I'm at, just about every single day. I get close to 10,000 steps a day. I always tell people, and like I take a lot of crap for it online, because like people always want to, like I get in my comments like a lot, like you just look as fat as the day that you started making videos. What's going on? And it's like I refuse to eat 1,300 calories a day. Like
it's miserable.
I'm a grown man. I don't want to live that way. Like if my body all of a sudden told me like we're good at 1,300 calories, great. But I get terrible headaches, terrible migraine. I think that in hindsight, when I cycled back from tirzepatide, it was probably that I was eating too few of calories, and like I'm on 15 now. I don't get migraines, but I think that it was like more potent back then for whatever reason, and I was just eating fewer calories, and I think that's why I was getting headaches. Because I do notice if I don't eat if I start my day and I don't eat till noon, and I get busy and then I accidentally don't eat till 1 or 2 in the afternoon, what gets me to eat is my headache.
Yeah, right.
And so anyways, it's complicated for me. I don't think I don't think what I'm up against is just more complicated than I think like your average, even diabetic case of somebody who's my age. I don't know.
Yeah, the migraines wouldn't help. I mean, I remember trying to eat 2,200 calories myself, and I was miserable. So, and I'm like 210 pounds. So I can imagine that feeling, that famished feeling, so hopefully retatrutide, the thing is it has this glucagon component that, I don't know, people are just melting their weight off. It may be something to where you could lose a lot more, despite even if you were eating 2,500 calories a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I just need to get some bathtub bread at True Tide.
Yeah, it's out there. It's research grade. It's not FDA approved, but
I am the research subject.
You are N of one.
Yeah, I don't know. So you get like it's just complicated. And I think like if I really buckled down, like if I went back and I started doing CrossFit and I started doing, building muscle mass and all that stuff, and I do have a little bit more capacity to do it. But it's just, again, it's almost like the same reason that I don't want to go back to a diet is because I know the cycle, and I'm like I'm more tired of the cycle than I am of being fat.
Yeah,
because it's so. Like I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm married. I have 4 kids. My wife loves me. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm just trying to live, longer for my kids at this point.
Yeah.
There was a time where I wanted to, I probably cared more about like how I physically looked to other people, but I'm so beyond that at this stage in my life. It's just like, I don't want to die. My dad died at 54. And he wasn't even that overweight. Granted, he was a big smoker, but I got 4 kids, and I do not want to leave them the way that my dad, left us when he passed away. And so I just want them to have the luxury of having a dad well into their adulthood and having kids and all that. So whatever that takes, I probably need to be more open to the surgery stuff. But like, I'm kind of a broken record. People in my audience are probably sick of hearing me say it. Is shut up and get the surgery. But we'll see.
We'll keep having the discussion, and again, it's one of those things. Sometimes people, it takes a while thinking about it, and then some. It's not unreasonable to want to wait, but clinically, I would say it is reasonable.
I think where I struggle with it, and then I kept you a lot longer than I told you I would, but I think where I struggle with is that you look at like the type 2 diabetes complication. If you're type 2 diabetic, it really seems like Roux-en-Y, like the actual, like the gastric bypass is the best outcome for a diabetic. Like, to me, I'm way more open to like a sleeve or something that's less invasive, feels less permanent maybe.
Yeah, sleeve is where a lot of people start, and then they can switch it later if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
But sleeve is where most people start.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Like, it seems like if I'm going to do it, I need to go all out. And if I go all out, that's a lot of anatomy rearranging for a 39-year-old guy. And it's just a hard pill to swallow. But
yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah. I understand.
Yeah. We'll keep the conversation going offline. You can bug me about some of this stuff as things come to mind. But I appreciate you chatting with me for a little while. I'm sure the community will enjoy this. I'm sure I'll catch a whole bunch of heat in the comments about my approach to all this. But I think what people need to understand about the disease of obesity is it's a spectrum. It's not experienced universally the same way by everyone. And there are unique complications, not just physically and biologically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all these things sort of play into it. And it's very hard to put on paper how it's experienced, but it's not as cut and dry as people want it to be. So appreciate you chatting.
Yeah, man, anytime.
All right, we'll do it again. Thanks.
See ya.
Look at who I got. Look at this pretty one. And this is Ella. Ella, can you say hi? This is the OTP community. This is the great community that your daddy has. Oh, yeah. Just rip me apart with those claws. So me and Ella did a live stream before the show tonight. And this is Ella. I just wanted to introduce the OTP community to our little baby. I mean, I work from home, and so I am over the moon to have a little companion. And she is it's just like having a baby. Everything is new to her, and she don't know how to do nothing. And it's so fun to watch her like learn everything. And she wants to bite everything right now. And her claws and teeth are just like, they're tiny, but they're razor sharp. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Daddy gonna push you down a little bit. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Dr. Spencer, but more so, how could you not enjoy this face? She's only going to be little for a little bit. I'm not going to be able to to hold her up and give her kisses and show her to the community like this. I mean, we'll do lots of videos, but super excited to have her. She's been great. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation with Dr. Spencer. Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, just a great advocate for obesity patients, people living with obesity, and he is just amazing. He's just amazing. His compassion, his knowledge, all that stuff. I got to spend a good bit of time with him down at Obesity Week in Austin. Probably I've spent more time with Dr. Spencer than I did with really anyone else. And so, oh yeah, Neil, I've got 4 babies. I've got 4 children of my own. I am just like uniquely positioned to appreciate how little she is and how quick it goes. But Dr. Spencer's great. If you enjoyed it, drop it in the comments. And then like what's really, really helpful if you want to help other people see this, which is very helpful for me in the work that I do. When we're done with the live stream, just go back and drop an emoji in the comment of the video, just an emoji about your favorite part of the video. Some of you, it's going to be a puppy emoji. I know that. And that's fair because look at her. I mean, honestly, Ella, she's so beautiful. She's wonderful. Baby talk. If you think this is over the top, you should hear me with my own children. But yeah, go leave an emoji after this is dropped. After the live stream is over. So yeah. But anyways, great conversation with Dr. Spencer. Listen, I promise we've got something in the works. We've got something in the works for the 3rd part of that series. I'm dying to tell you all about it, but I can't. So when I can, I will. Hopefully that's this week. Thank you all for being the best part of what we do at On The Pen. Thank you for being, you all know, like, I do not enjoy sharing what I shared, the second half of that interview. I don't enjoy it, but I know it's so important. And I know that many of you also still struggle. And it's hard. It's hard when it seems like if this is the fix for so many people, why isn't it for me? What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. I mean, there is metabolically, but intrinsically, there's nothing wrong with you. You are wonderful. I hear a lot of times on TikTok, a lot of people who have lost their weight, they'll see old pictures of themselves and they'll say, that's not me. And I'm like, oh, but it was you and it is you. And you had just as much value then as you do now. And that's true. Like, I think it's so important for us to know that we all have value at every stage in our journey, intrinsic value that doesn't go away. It doesn't change with the number on the scale. And, that's something that I tell myself very frequently, that I am a creation in God's own image, I'm an image bearer of the very creator of the universe. And so are you. And that's where our intrinsic value comes from. It's nothing else. This is just one of those battles of living in a broken world, of living with disease and living with illness and struggle. But that's part of it. And we do it together, and we do it together here at On The Pen. And I'm so thankful for each and every one of you and the wonderful community that this is. So until next week, when hopefully we have more puppy grumbling, when we have more to share with you on part 3, may the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, and be so gracious to you and gracious to the puppy who is done. She's done. She's done with this. So thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you to Dr. Spencer Nadolsky for joining us tonight. I'm so thankful for all of you. Have a great night, and we will see you on the next one. It's okay.